Uh, Aka means red! Haha! My mastery of the Japanese language will soon be at hand, ladies and gentlemen. Can you say all the colors in Japanese? Cause I could say all the colors in Japanese. Except if you throw like magenta or turquoise at me. Just get the hell out of here. I will smack you away from my presence with this red scabbard, which is also a very handy transition into the topic of today's video. It was just so convenient. I just happened to have a red scabbard sitting next to me for the purposes of this. Alright, so I'll admit, I was a little bit arrogant with this subject matter. I didn't really care much for the 9 red scabbards when they were first mentioned, okay? I understood the concept. I'm like, oh, okay, they were basically like Odin's, like, elite guard, like his royal guard, probably. You know, you had Kozuki Odin, who was the daimyo, you had, not the daimyo, you had the shogun before Orochi, you had Sukeyake, who was Odin's father, and the 9 red scabbards were basically the top warriors of the Kozuki family, okay? Or maybe even the top warriors of all of Wano at that time about 20 years ago. Then cut to Kaido coming into town, and then you had Orochi coming to power, and then they assumed the 9 red scabbards were crushed right there that day, that fateful day 20 years ago, but of course we know that's not the case because Lady Toki used her time powers to send Kinemon, who is the captain of the 9 red scabbards, as well as a few other members, to the future, and so that, you know, her prophecy will come true. Her prophecy before she died was, you know, 20 years from now, Orochi, the 9 red scabbards will resurrect and, you know, dethrone you, and that's why Orochi is so terrified of this. He's so superstitious, right? So I understood the concept, and I thought it was cool. It was like a royal guard sort of thing, but I wasn't really all that interested because of my arrogance in already assuming that we've met all the 9 red scabbards, okay? Allow me to go down my list of the people I just automatically assumed without even second guessing myself. Oh, these are the 9 red scabbards, okay? Kinemon, Raizo, Kanjuro, I think those ones are pretty obvious. Like, okay, we already know for a fact Kinemon is the captain because that was name dropped. And then we also know Raizo is because Raizo recently had the text box that appeared when he was in the prison. It was like, Raizo of the Mist, also a member of the 9 red scabbards. But those are the only two 100% confirmed people. But we pretty much have to throw Kanjuro in there. It would be very, very weird if Kanjuro was not a member, but Raizo and Kinemon were, considering that Kanjuro was part of the group that got sent to the future. We, you know, oh no, we have to go to Punk Hazard to find Momo. Now we have to go to Dressrosa to find Kanjuro. Now we have to go to Zoe to find Raizo. Be very weird if Kanjuro wasn't. So those first 3 make sense, okay? Then I threw in the other 3 samurai, or the other 3 strong warriors in Wano that Kinemon mentioned they have to get on their side for the rebellion. So that's Ashura Doji, who is Shutenmaru, Kawamatsu, and Den Zero. I don't think that's too reachy, you know, like, because at that point now, Shutenmaru maybe not, because Shutenmaru talked about how he respected Odin, and, you know, he fought Odin at one point, Odin beat him, and Shutenmaru, of course, a very noble, very loyal, you know, samurai, you know, he follows Bushido and all that stuff, was like, oh, okay, so Odin seems like a respectful guy, I will lend him my sword whenever he requires it, but that he also stated that he wasn't like a lapdog, he didn't put himself in the same category as like Kinemon, who was a proper retainer. So it's possible that Shutenmaru wasn't a member of the 9 red scabbards, okay? That's kind of taking an assumption. As for Kawamatsu and Den Zero, well, we know nothing about Den Zero, so that's not even fair to put him in there. But as for Kawamatsu, I think he was the dude. The otter mink is most likely what he's going to turn out to be, and we saw him when he arrived with the group at the Odin castle burning down that night. He was the short fellow with the Casa hat, so I think it's fair to say Kawamatsu was probably a member, but as for Shutenmaru, possibly, but his attitude seems to suggest otherwise, and we just don't know one way or the other with Den Zero. So, okay, now it's starting to break apart. Then I threw Inurashi and Nekomamushi in there, which at the time made perfect sense, because it's like, they're really strong warriors, and the Minks had already been allied with Odin and Wano for a very long time now. They have a history together, but if I just sat down and thought about it for a second, I'm like, okay, so Kozuki Odin and the Shogun Sukeyaki back in the day mobilized 9 great warriors to fight for them as their royal guard, basically. And 2 of these warriors are going to be members of a tribe that live hundreds of kilometers away on a giant floating elephant that, not floating elephant, Zunisha's not just bobbing up in the water, although that would be kind of funny. No, Zunisha actually has really, really long legs that stretch all the way to the ocean floor. That's how Zunisha gets around. But you see my flaw with this. It's like, if you're gonna create a royal guard to protect your shogun or your daimyo or your royalty, you're not gonna pick 2 people that are living on a completely separate island elephant thing. It isn't practical. All right, they're strong warriors. I mean, we saw Inuarashi clash with Shutenmaru, and they seemed about even. Remember, Shutenmaru was the guy that just checked Jack like that, you know, and I love that scene. It really is. You know what I really came to realization today? I came to the realization that Jack is sort of like a big fish in a small pond sort of deal when he got to like other islands, because when Jack shows up to town for like a regular island, it's like, oh no, it's Jack the Drought, he's going to pound us flat with his mammoth powers. But when it comes to Wano, with all the strong samurai, and with Queen, and with King, and with Kaido, he's kind of like, yeah, he is kind of like the dorky little brother, where if he goes out into the world, he's terrifying, but he's just kind of like, average tier when it comes to the Wano land, you know? Regular people fear him, but Shutenmaru is like, screw this dude, and he just slices him up. So that's the situation with Jack. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense for Inuarashi and Nekomamushi to be on this list, so I'm just going to scratch them off. And then we have, as the 9th member, we had Okiku. Now, this is interesting because Okiku is clearly a very good fighter. She knows her way around a sword and all that stuff. However, the way that Wano is set up, it seems to indicate that, yeah, women samurai, not really accepted by society. Now, back during the time of Odin or the Shogun Sukiyaki, who's Odin's father, maybe it might have been a little different. Maybe it's like, we will create the 9 red scabbards and there's 8 guys, but then maybe Kinemon or somebody else vouches for Kiku and just like, oh, Kiku's a great fighter, let her join. And maybe she was like the newest member or something before shit hit the fan. So I also threw Shinobu in there too, but Shinobu was revealed to be a member of the ninja group that was underneath the Shogun, so she was part of something completely different. But yeah, Okiku, possibly, but not 100%. It's not guaranteed. So when I was looking at this list today, I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I was kind of rather presumptuous with assuming these. So yeah, let's talk about this. Okay. So let's first talk about the name, 9 Red Scabbards. All right, so there's clearly a meaning behind this. You know, I mean, it sounds cool, but I highly doubt, like, Odin mobilized this group and, like, I will give you the name 9 Red Scabbards, mostly just because it sounds cool and it was the first thing that popped into my head. No, there's definitely a reason behind it. Now, we know there's not a literal meaning, because Kinemon, his swords don't have red scabbards. If you look at Kinemon's scabbards for his swords, they're black with like a flame pattern. But okay, maybe you could say there is some red on his scabbard, it's just in the form of flames. Okay, but Raizo is a ninja, he doesn't have a scabbard at all. Kanjuro, if he's a member, which I'm pretty sure he is, doesn't have a scabbard for his weapon. His weapon is a giant brush, which he uses in conjunction with his devil fruit abilities, which is the... Actually, I don't think we know Kanjuro's devil fruit yet. I don't think that was ever named. I'm assuming it's the draw fruit or something, or the no, it can't be the art fruit because that was Jola's. So yeah, I guess we don't know what Kanjuro's ability is yet, but we all know what it does. He's allowed to create abominations of nature by drawing them in a very poor fashion and bringing them to life. Ryunosuke! We will love you to the end of time, you poor sad dragon creature. He gave it his all, guys. He gave it his all. But yeah, point is, Kanjuro doesn't have a red scabbard. Raizo doesn't have a red scabbard. I mean, we don't know Shutenmaru's color scheme and everything in the anime yet, because it's not up to that point, but maybe he does. But I'm pretty sure it's not just a literal meaning, okay? So, if you're going to take it more figurative, what could that lead to? Well, when you're talking about red in this context with samurai and, you know, strong warriors in the country of Wano, the first thing that indicates that is blood. You know, that's what the red stands for, you know? Now, you could always look at it like, okay, a scabbard is meant to, okay, sheath your sword, of course. By the way, fun fact, there is a difference between scabbard and sheath, and I just found that out. I've been using them interchangeably for a number of years, and I probably will continue to in the future. But a scabbard is like a hard surface thing, and a sheath is kind of like a sheath, like a hunting knife. You know, it's like a more of a cloth sort of thing you put a knife into. So yeah, I guess that's the main difference. But yeah, the point is, you know, a scabbard is not to be used as a main weapon unless you're Shimatsu Toyohisa. He uses a scabbard as just a main weapon. But if you're not him, yeah, you take your sword, your katana, and you know, sheath it in your scabbard. Okay, so maybe when they say red scabbards, they're referring to like, okay, here's the Royal Guard of Wano, and they don't use violence as like a, you know, an immediate reaction to, you know, citizens acting out if they're trying to like attack the shogun or something. It's not like the first thing they'll do is take out their swords and start slicing the dissenters down. You know, Odin and his father didn't seem to be like the warmonger kind of types. Like, yes, yes, my royal guard, go out to towns and slice everybody down to retrieve their taxes or whatever, or teach them a lesson. Doesn't really seem to be their situation. And if that was the case, I think they would just go with maybe the 9 red swords. That's another theory I have, though. Give me a second here. But basically, for right now, I could go with, like, okay, 9 red scabbards is like, okay, they're great warriors that usually keep their blades sheathed. Takes a lot to really piss them off because that's not the kind of ruler, you know, Odin wants to be. But they're still great warriors. And don't anger them or they will unsheath their blades and you won't like what happens after that. And so I thought what would be really cool, what would be like kind of poetic here, is at the time of the battle, when I'm imagining everybody's getting ready at the port to invade Onigashima. You have all of the 9 red scabbards gathered there at that point. You have Luffy and his crew. You got the Minks all ready to go, okay? And you have Kinemon in, like, badass samurai armor. Like, he's ready to go, you know? And you have the scabbards behind him. And maybe he thinks back to a time when he was speaking to Odin about the name. Maybe Kinemon himself was curious, like, 9 red scabbards, Lord Odin, what does that mean? And maybe Odin could say something like, well, it's meant to be that we'll never use your power in the sense of, like, violence, but when that day comes, you will no longer be the 9 red scabbards, you will be the 9 red swords, or the 9 red katanas. Because at that point, I know you guys are great warriors, and you could slice down a bunch of people in your wake. So when you get to that point, like, you know, time to fight back against Kaido, you know, being all steadfast and just focusing on defense, you know, and sheathing your blade, that's not going to cut it. You need to reveal your blades, and you need to fight with everything you've got. And it's going to result in massive amounts of bloodshed, but it would be the thing that's like the last resort. So I was angling it maybe like that. Maybe like when they're right about to charge, he's like, men, we are no longer the 9 red scabbards. As soon as we charge forth on Onigashima, we will be the 9 red blades. And everybody unsheaths their blades at once, and we have this awesome, like, 2-page spread that, like, ends out the chapter with the 9 red scabbards and the 9 red blades standing there, all silhouetted with their eyes, like, glowing, and it's like the aura just changes about them. Like, Kinemon and Kanjuro and Raizo, they're kind of goofy, but in this moment, when they're about to charge on Onigashima, their expressions just go, like, super serial, and they're like, bloodlust time. It's time to take back our country. It's time to eliminate Kaido. It's time to slice down the shogun. It's time to reclaim our land, to reclaim our heritage, and to fulfill the dream of Odin, which kind of the formation of the 9 red scabbards was part of this, was to open up the borders of Wano Kuni and allow everybody in. That was their original goal. Okay, and that's the reason why that Orochi kind of set them up as enemies of the state. When he came to power, of course, you know, you have Kinemon and Raizo and Kanjuro that got sent to the future, but like Kawamatsu and Shutenmaru and everybody, if they are members, and all the other members, they're still stuck in Wano. You know, they're not, they're not, they didn't get a free pass to the future. They had to deal with 20 years of this bullshit. And in that 20 years, Orochi set it up like, oh, they are enemies of the state because they were trying to open up our borders and they were trying to probably, like, you know, pollute our virgin land. You know, Wano is this isolationist country and it should be that way for the rest of existence. And so that's how he set it up in the culture, where it's like, oh yeah, those people were evil. Those people were horrible for trying to do that. And so that's how the public views the 9 red scabbards right now. If you were to go into the flower capital and just name drop them, and they're even taught this way in school, I think that would actually actually might have been the first time the 9 Red Scabbards were name-dropped during that school where that creepy snake-necked teacher, although yet oddly attractive a teacher, I'm not the only one that thought that. I would, okay, maybe go out for some lunch or something. I don't know. She's nice. She's nice. Hey, look, this is One Piece we're talking about here, okay? This is not the first snake woman that has given me a... Yeah. All right. So, with that being said, though, if Inuarashi and Nekomamushi, if we're just going to remove them, because I'm pretty confident they are not members for the reasons I already said, but if we still include Kawamatsu, Ashura Doji, Denjiro, and Okiku, which Okiku's still on the fence, if we still include all of them, that still leaves 2 people that are missing. Okay? Now, we saw a lot of random samurai all over Wano when they were passing out those, like, flyers for the attack. He's like, oh, it's actually finally happening. The Kozuki clan has finally returned, you know, and they're looking at it. They're like, whoa, this is crazy. So they might be some of the members, or they might just be random followers. Also, you should consider that not every single... I threw this out there when I did my last review. I talked about how you might have retainers of Kinemon, people that have the moon tattoo on them back in the day that, you know, were followers, but now they might be under Orochi's control. You also have to look at it from the opposite end of that there might be people right now working under Orochi that might actually turn out to be allies later on. Case in point, Kyoshiro. Kyoshiro being the leader of the Yakuza. Now, I'm not saying that Kyoshiro was a member of the 9 Red Scabbards back in the day. You could always spin it like, well, maybe he had a relative, maybe his father or older brother or somebody was a member of that. Because here's the thing, there's not a guarantee all 9 of the Red Scabbards are still alive. All right, we might find out, like, even if you include Kawamatsu, Denjiro, and Ashura Doji in this, there might still be like, oh yeah, there were 3 others, but they're dead. Like, they're gone. They died sometime in the 20 years. In fact, I think that's pretty much a definite possibility at this point. That has to be a given. That, like, oh, the 9 Red Scabbards survived in their entirety for 20 years. Granted, a few of them got sent to the future, but that's still leaving at least 6, you know, in Wano. You know, Kawamatsu got imprisoned. We don't know where Denjiro is right now. You know, Shutenmaru, if he's one of them, he's a member of this mountain bandit crew. You know, there had to be at least 1 or 2 of them that died in that 20 years. Either got caught and executed or just died of natural causes. If that's the case, you could always have Kyoshiro fill in. You know, it's like my older brother or my father was a member of the 9 Red Scabbards back in the day. I also thought about Hyogoro, but the only reason I'm not throwing him in there is because Shinobu brought him up to Robin and Nami when they were in the bathhouse. Like, oh, this is Hyogoro of the Flowers, and he was the leader of the Yakuza back in the day. But you'd think Shinobu at that point would also feel like, you know, pertinent to mention, oh, by the way, he was also a member of the 9 Red Scabbards that worked under Odin, that were the great guards that we were looking for right now. You'd think she would also drop that nugget of information at that point. There's no reason for her not to. You know, like for her not to whisper to Nami and Robin, oh, by the way, he was also a member of the 9 Red Scabbards. So I'm not thinking Hyogoro was, but, he, you know, and right now, Hyogoro, I mean, he's an old man, and it is manga. I mean, he's this frail old dude, but who knows? After he takes off his sea stone cuffs, he might, like, bulk up like Master Roshi, like, Dadoosh! You know, Shing, I'm ready to fight alongside you guys. Let's do this! I doubt that, but it's manga. You can never entirely roll that out. You know, I had the muscle fruit this entire time, and these sea prism stone cuffs were restricting my power. You know, that has been passed down the Armstrong family for generations. Okay. So, I'm thinking some of them are dead, though, and then Kyoshiro is going to fill that gap, because Kyoshiro, I think, is going to turn out to be maybe not 100% an ally, but he's definitely a foe when it comes to Orochi. He's definitely plotting stuff. It's probably going to turn out to be some kind of scheming shit, sort of like, well, you see, Kinemon, I am not interested in your 9 Red Scabbards, nor am I interested in rebuilding Wano or setting it up for, you know, international trade or whatever Odin desired. I really don't care. And then Kinemon is like, well, what do you care about? Sticking it to that Denzel Crocker mofo. That's what I care about. No, you fool, Kyoshiro! I am Lord Orochi, and I will stop you and the 9 Red Scabbards and Momo's fairy godparents if it kills me! Okay, So, yeah, I'm thinking Kyoshiro might do something along those lines. He's like, I'll join you guys. I hear you have pulling a Frieza during the Tournament of Power, and it's like, well, we need a 10th member for our team. It's like, well, we need a 9th member of the 9th Red Scabbards. The 8 Red Scabbards really doesn't vibe too well, so I think it's time to take an enemy into our midst. And I think Kyoshiro is that perfect recipient there of that title. But then you still have, and once again, this is including all of those 3 people and Okiku as a member, you would still have, and Kyoshiro, you would still have 1 person left. And I really got no ideas on this. Like I said, you could always throw Hyogoro in there, or one of the random samurai, but I just don't see it. Unless you want to spin it like, let's say 2 of the members died, you could always throw in like, oh, well, Zoro can be the new member of the 9 Red Scabbards. Or Law could be a new member. You could always do that, sure. But I'm trying to go through the Rolodex of all of the people we've met in Wano, and we've met a lot of people. Sometimes they've just been single panels of like, here's a random samurai, or there's that, what was his name, Jubaemon? That guy, that older dude that arrived, and he was like, oh, I am one of, Sukeyake's retainers, young Momo. I am your grandfather's, loyal retainer. But, I don't think he was one of them. You could always say that bandit dude, I don't think he was one. Kalamazoo was a serial killer. I don't think he was a member. He was like an assassin hired by Orochi. So, yeah, we've met quite a few people in Wano, but I'm trying to go down the list of people that might fit, like, Red Scabbard material, and I don't think we've really arrived at that person yet, unless somebody else is going to take up the title. But, that's also in the comment section below. Go and comment and let me know who you think the 9 Red Scabbards are going to be revealed to be, if some of them are deceased, if some of the group of, like, right now, like Zoro and Law are going to have to take up the mantle, if Kyoshiro might join up with the rebellion at some point. But, yeah, certainly maybe a little bit more to this than I originally assumed, just like, oh yeah, 9 Red Scabbards, they're probably these people, and that's all we need to know about. No, and then there's probably also going to be the history, the lore behind them, like, they were tasked with a very, very specific mission, like, yeah, to open up the borders of Wano for one, but maybe there was, like, another mission that Kinemon was tasked to lead the 9 Red Scabbards into battle with, that he was given by Odin, so we might find out about that as well. So, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody, and this will be Tekking101 signing out. Snap!